The moment Alysa Liu won Olympic gold in Milan, three things happened almost simultaneously. The arena went crazy. Her dad screamed in the stands. And millions of people went to Google and typed the exact same 4 words. Does Alysa Liu date? It is honestly kind of hilarious when you think about it. She just became the first American woman to win individual figure skating gold in 24 years. She just completed one of the greatest comeback stories in Olympic history. She just screamed something extremely unfiltered on live television in front of the entire world. And everyone wanted to know about the boyfriend. So a reporter asked her. And Alysa Liu gave an answer that nobody who covers celebrity relationships was ready for. Not because it was mysterious. Not because she refused to answer. But because she was so completely at peace with it that the whole room kind of just stopped for a second. She said she really loves herself. She said her standards are quite high. She said she genuinely loves being single and sees herself staying that way for a long time. And she said she chooses friendships over relationships every single day. That was it. No drama. No longing. No hint of something complicated hiding underneath. Just a 20-year-old Olympic champion telling the world she is exactly where she wants to be and she does not need anyone else to complete that picture. The internet immediately lost its mind. And not in the way you might expect. Here is what people miss when they see a clip of a famous person saying they are happily single. They assume it is a performance. That the person is either covering for a secret relationship, trying to seem relatable, or giving a polished non-answer to avoid the real story. With Alysa Liu, none of that is true. And once you understand where she came from, that becomes very obvious very fast. From the time she was 5 years old, Alysa Liu had almost no control over her own life. Not her schedule. Not her training. Not her music. Not her costumes. Not what she ate or how she wore her hair or what she said in public. All of that was managed by coaches and parents and the machine of elite figure skating. She lived alone in a training center in Colorado Springs at 15 while her dad and 4 siblings were back home in Oakland. She was homeschooled her whole life and did her homework in her father's law office between practice sessions. She graduated high school at 15. She competed at the Olympics at 16. She had never had a sleepover. Never been on a road trip with friends. Never stayed up until 4 in the morning doing something completely pointless and fun. She had never even gotten her driver's license because she was never anywhere long enough to take the test. Every single relationship in her life during that time was structured around skating. Her coaches. Her training partners. Her dad. Everyone who surrounded her had a role to play in getting her to the next competition. There was no space for connection that was just connection. No space for friendship that did not have a competitive agenda attached to it. She told Cosmopolitan magazine, "I'm a very social person. I crave human connection. Last time I was training way too much and I didn't really spend too much time with my fellow Team USA members. Connections with people, that's the most important thing in life. It overrides everything." She was talking about skating. But she was also describing everything she had been starved of for years. When she retired at 16, the first thing she did was not rest. It was connect. She got her driver's license finally. She moved into a real college dorm at UCLA and went to actual classes with actual students who had no idea what a triple axel was. She stayed up until 4 in the morning playing Fortnite with her siblings. She went to bad karaoke and laughed at herself. She took art classes. She went on road trips. She did absolutely nothing productive on purpose. Just to feel what that felt like. And for the first time in her life, she started building friendships that were just friendships. No shared training schedule. No competition. No agenda. Just people she liked spending time with. Her best friend Shay Newton became a constant presence during those 2 years. They took a trip to Nepal together and hiked to Everest Base Camp at 17,000 feet above sea level. Not for training. Not for any official reason. Just because they wanted to see what it felt like up there. On the way they spent a full 7 hours having a serious debate about whether they would rather come back in their next life as a chicken or a cow. That is the kind of conversation you only have with someone you completely trust. The kind of conversation Alysa had never had time for before. She also found herself in a way that is harder to describe but very real. For the first time she was not performing. Not for judges. Not for cameras. Not for her father's dreams or her coach's programs or the expectations of an entire sport. She was just a 17-year-old girl figuring out what she actually liked. What made her laugh. What she was like when nobody was watching and nothing was on the line. And what she found out about herself during those 2 years was genuinely surprising even to her. She found out she is someone who fills up on love from the people around her so completely that she does not feel a void. She found out she is someone who loves herself in a specific, grounded way that is completely different from the kind of people who say they love themselves as a coping mechanism. She found out she is someone who, after a childhood of being controlled by other people's needs, does not feel the pull to organize her life around another person's needs right now. That is not a wound. That is not loneliness dressed up as confidence. That is someone who did a lot of living in 2 years and came out with a very clear picture of what she needs. And what she does not. When she came back to skating in 2024, she was different in ways that surprised even her coaches. The girl who had been dropped off at the rink and told what to do was gone. The girl who showed up now walked in with opinions about everything. She chose her own music. All of it. She went through nearly 15 different versions of her short program soundtrack before she landed on something she felt. She chose her own costumes and sent them back to the dressmaker multiple times until they were exactly what she had pictured. She set her own training load. She told her coaches that if anyone asked her to change her hair color she would quit. Not as a threat. As a simple statement of fact. Her hair is worth talking about for a second because it is actually part of the love life story even though it sounds completely unrelated. Those platinum blonde stripes in her hair are not random. She started adding them 3 years ago. One new stripe every year like a tree adding rings. A visual record of who she has become since she stopped being what other people needed her to be. She did the frenulum piercing herself with a needle while her sister held up her lip and she looked in the mirror. Something about doing that one small painful thing entirely on her own terms mattered to her. The girl who spent 11 years in costumes she did not choose is now the girl who will literally pierce her own face before she lets anyone else make a decision about how she looks. That is not a small shift. That is a complete reconstruction of a person. And a person who has done that kind of reconstruction, who has fought that hard to get full ownership of herself, is not going to hand that ownership over to someone else lightly. In January 2026, a few weeks before the Milan Olympics, Cosmopolitan sat down with her and asked about her love life. She paused for a second and said something genuinely funny. "Oh my God, this is like the first time I have talked about this." And then she said everything she had apparently been thinking about privately for a while. She said she has so much love in her life already. So many people who fill that space. She said she has not felt the need to look for more or look elsewhere. She said she really loves herself and her standards are quite high. She said if she were to date someone they would both have to make a lot of sacrifices and right now it is just not worth it to try to build something. And then the line that the whole internet grabbed onto and will not put down. "I love being single. I really do. I see myself being single for a long time. Not with sadness. Not with resignation. With the same casual, grounded confidence she uses when she talks about landing a triple axel. Like it is just a fact about herself that she has made complete peace with. People who have never experienced that kind of peace in their own lives heard that and felt something. You could see it in the comments. Girls writing things like "I needed to hear this today." Women writing things about how rare it is to hear someone say that and actually mean it. People in relationships writing about how they wish they had that relationship with themselves. Because the thing about Alysa Liu saying she loves being single is that she is not saying she has given up on love. She is not performing independence to seem cool. She is saying something much more specific and much more hard to fake. She is saying she found herself. After 20 years and a lot of pain and a complete rebuilding of her identity from the ground up, she found herself. And she likes who she found. And she is not in a rush to reorganize her life around someone else's existence until the right person makes that feel worth it. Her actual words: "I think when it comes, it will." 5 words. Total peace. There is another layer to this that makes it hit differently when you know the full context. This is a girl who for years was surrounded by people who needed something from her. Her coaches needed her to perform. Her father needed her to succeed. The sport needed her to represent. Even the Chinese government decided she was useful enough to spy on. Everyone around her wanted a piece of what she could do. And during those 2 years away, she quietly built something nobody could take from her. A circle of people who just liked her. Not the skater. Not the champion. Not the prodigy or the future of American figure skating. Just Alysa. The girl who argues about chickens and cows for 7 hours on a hiking trail. The girl who plays Fortnite until 4 a.m. and does bad karaoke and genuinely means it when she laughs. She said it herself: connections are the most important thing in life and they override everything. She has those connections now. Real ones. Ones that are not about anything except 2 people choosing to be in each other's lives because they want to be. And that kind of love, the kind that asks nothing from you except your actual presence, is something she could not have had when skating was consuming everything. She is not giving that up for a relationship that would require both people to make tons of sacrifices and still probably struggle against her schedule and her goals and her complete unwillingness to let anyone else run her life again. When it comes, it will. Until then, she is perfectly full. She is 20 years old. She has an Olympic gold medal, 3 million Instagram followers, a Nike deal, a Samsung deal, a partnership with Toyota and an IMG agent. She has a best friend she climbed a mountain with. She has 4 siblings she grew up sharing bunk beds with who are now the people she stays up playing video games with at 4 in the morning. She has coaches who finally get to work with a version of her that is completely present and completely herself. She has hair that records her own history on her own head. She also has the highest personal standards of anyone she knows and 0 apologies about that either. Someone asked her once if she was scared those high standards would mean she ends up alone. The way she answered it was so Alysa Liu it almost hurts. She said she really does love herself. Not as a deflection. Not as a sad conclusion. As an answer. A complete and total answer to the question of whether she is okay with where she is and who she is and how her life looks right now. She really does love herself. And an Olympic gold medal, 3 million new followers and a Cosmopolitan interview later, a whole lot of people are starting to think that is genuinely one of the most remarkable things about her.